I'm going to do a few problems here on aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Here's one, determinants of aggregate demand. The graph below is associated with a hypothetical country. Consider an increase in aggregate demand. Specifically, aggregate demand shifts to the right from AD1 to AD2. Okay, here's the aggregate demand 1. Here's aggregate demand 2. And it shifts from here to here. And causing a quantity of output demanded to rise at each price level. For instance, at a price level of 140, right here, output is now 400 billion, right here, after the shift, where initially it was 300 billion, right here. All right. Well, it says the following table lists several determinants of aggregate demand. Okay, well, first of all, let's write down what is aggregate demand. Okay, so aggregate demand, as you recall, is consumer demand, demand for capital investment, government demand for goods and services, and export demand netted out against imports. So I have net exports equals aggregate demand. Okay, so what it's asking now is what change is required to increase aggregate demand? In other words, what would cause this curve to do this shift out to the right? Expected rate of return on investment. Incomes in other countries, consumer expectations about future profitability, government spending. Which way would these things have to move for aggregate demand to shift to the right? Well, let's see. Here we go. I'll get my little pen back. First one, expected rate of return on investment. Well, if the expected rate of return on investment rises, we're going to see more capital investment. And that will increase aggregate demand, meaning shift to the right. So an increase in investment, an expected rate of return on investment will increase investment. Investment's a component of aggregate demand, therefore it moves to the right. Incomes in other countries. Well, if incomes in other countries go up, net exports will go up. Net exports, a component of aggregate demand, it rises, okay? And consumers' expectations about future profitability. Okay, if consumer expectations are optimistic, then they're going to be spending more. Consumption's a component of aggregate demand. Okay. And government spending, well, if government spends more, there you go. That's going to increase this component of aggregate demand. And so any one of those will. So those need to increase. If any of those increase, this is going to shift aggregate demand out to the right. Next, we've got the slope and position of the long-run aggregate supply curve. Assume the Federal Reserve triples the growth rate of the quantity of money in circulation. In the long run, this increases the money growth. This increase in money growth will affect which of the following? Okay, so more money. Let's see. The level of technological knowledge, quantity of physical capital, the price level, the inflation rate. Okay, monetary neutrality. That's what the game is here. So the money supply is a nominal variable. nominal variables can have an effect on other nominal variables. But monetary neutrality says that nominal variables cannot affect real variables. Nominal variable is measured in monetary units. A real variable is measured in physical units. So the Federal Reserve triples the rate of growth of the money. Well, in the long run, that's not going to do anything to technological knowledge or the quantity of physical capital. Think of it this way. Printing up a bunch of money isn't going to mean better ways of doing things. Is not going to mean more houses and cars. Not going to mean more factories, but it will mean a higher price level and inflation rate. Okay. These are physical or real variables. These are nominal variables. Okay. Suppose when unemployment is at its natural rate, the economy produces a level of real GDP equal to 60 billion. Okay, 60 billion's right there. Well, when the economy is at its natural rate, when unemployment is at its natural rate, then the long run aggregate supply curve is also at its natural level of output. And that is equal to 60 billion. So this is natural rate of unemployment, and the natural rate of level of output is one and the same. Okay, when we are at the natural rate of output or level of output, we are at the natural rate of unemployment. So that's the key to this question, is to recognize that the natural rate of unemployment takes place when the level of real GDP is at its natural level of output. Okay, so use the purple diamond plot to the economy's long-run aggregate supply curve. Okay, so we take that, put that at 60, and there we go. There's our long-run aggregate supply curve. Suppose now the government passes a law that significantly increases the minimum wage. This change in policy caused the natural rate of unemployment to, okay. So now let's go back and let's talk about the determinants of supply, long run aggregate supply. So remember we talked about, whoops. Okay, this is a little uncooperative at times. Let's try that again. Labor. Okay. Capital. Natural resources. And technology. Okay. So that is what determines long-run aggregate supply. Capital, of course, physical capital and human capital. And so it says, suppose now government passes a law that significantly increases the minimum wage. Well, here's our supply demand for labor. And so here's the equilibrium level of wage level. And so it says significantly increases the minimum wage. So we are to assume that this is going to be a binding minimum wage. It's going to be up there somewhere. Labor supply is going to be here, and labor demand is going to be here. Quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded. That surplus of labor we call structural unemployment. And so what happens? Before the minimum wage, there's this much. There's the original equilibrium. there's that much labor available. But now quantity demanded of labor falls to here, so we've got that much available. So less labor, the change in labor has fallen. And so what's going to happen to the long run aggregate supply curve? It says the change in policy will cause the natural rate of unemployment to, well, natural rate of unemployment is structural unemployment plus frictional unemployment. That is the natural rate of unemployment. Sorry for my writing. Okay. And structural just increased. Okay. We've got some structural unemployment. So the natural rate of unemployment has gone up. It's gone up. And that means shift the long run aggregate supply curve to the left. It's going to go this way. Okay. Well, let me try this little thingy. It's going to go from here. Whoops. Okay. Okay, here's the supply curve. It's going to shift over here. And I should have left that alone. Let's try this. Okay, there we go. Much better. It's going to shift to the left. Okay? All right. Now it asks, when we scroll down here, it says, complete the following table by determining how each event impacts the position of the long run aggregate supply curve. Which direction will it shift? Right or left? Okay, we just saw one that shifted it to the left. An investment tax credit increases the rate at which firms acquire machinery and equipment. Well, capital, physical capital, we've got an increase of physical capital. So that's going to shift the long run aggregate supply curve to the right. If I could get this thing to work. Well, government allows more immigration. Of working age adults who find work. Okay, well, that's more labor. More labor, we're going to see this shift to the right. Long-run aggregate supply to the right. For environmental and safety reasons, the government requires the country's nuclear power plants be permanently shut down. Okay, we're losing some capital, some physical capital there. So that will shift the long-run aggregate supply curve to the left.